switch mean? OSD switch? Should we just sit here for the whole 2 minutes?
We're waiting for you.
No. Well, you know, they're getting extra content. You know,
are we live?
We are now live.
Yeah, we are.
It says live. That's live in the upper right,
intro.
in the upper right hand corner of the screen. That means
we're
live.
We're freaking people out because we're actually early.
That's because I'm here and I'm going to tell you guys the honest truth. I forgot all about that. I agreed to do this. I had a vague sense that something was happening on Thursday, but I didn't actually put it on my calendar, which was a big mistake. And then I'm sitting down going, okay, I'm going to get this video produced before I then will go on a date with my my spouse. And then I was like, oh, right. I said I would do Let's Drone Out on Thursday. What time am I doing that? Well, it turns out it was 20 minutes from then. So the good news is here we all are. But any claim I have to being the reason we started on time, no.
Oh, dear.
There's Andy RC as well. Right, let's from the top, Jack. Let's go. We're early. We're freaking everyone out. Let's go.
Do the intro, Jack.
Curry Kid.
I'm gonna do the intro.
Go for it, everyone. Do you know the intro?
No. What do you say for the intro?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out.
But try not to oversell it like Jack does.
Pretty much just like that.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out.
I love it.
Americans trying to do English accents is one of the funniest things than watching the dogs try and speak.
I'm actually, with enough practice, I'm not good at accents per se, but if you give me a sentence, I can mimic the accent. I'm like a parrot. I couldn't create new speech in an accent convincingly, but if you give me like one sentence, I can say it with enough repetition. So
usually when somebody does like an English accent, they put words in like tally ho and
cup of tea and
things that we never actually say. Like,
I say tally ho.
This is the Dick Van Dyke School of English accents.
Oh, don't. Did you know he was so embarrassed about but he didn't know that his Cockney in Mary Poppins was as bad as it was. He thought he was doing a good job. And later he got so much flack for it that he actually turned down, I forget the role, but he turned down a prominent role because it would have required him to do an English accent, or did he do it just with an American accent and say, fuck it?
This is Dick Van Dyke, is it? We're talking about.
Yeah.
I have
blimey, Mary Poppins and all that.
You need to go watch Mary Poppins. He has the least convincing Cockney accent in all of recorded history.
Yep, agreed. Anyway, go, Jack. Intros.
He did it. No, I tricked him into doing it. Did you not catch that?
Josh, we are joined tonight by.
You're waiting for Josh to say that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're not going to learn anything at all. Because as much as I try to bring a little intellect to the room, all these yahoos are. Andy, you're all right.
He knows me. You see,
you need to address him by his full title, Andy RC.
Nobody knows us over here. We're on this little.
I know your red bedspread. That's what I know.
It's purple now.
I got a red bedspread from pretending to be Andy RC.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I change it up. It goes purple now sometimes, and people got very mad when I changed the color of it. But
oh my god,
what can you do?
Like, I don't understand that. Anyway, Josh, I go, hello, welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out, and then I say,
welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out.
And then I say, tonight we are joined by.
That's quite good.
I didn't hear it.
Andrew/Frank.
Andrew/Frank.
Good evening.
Andy RC.
Andy RC.
Hello.
Our guest tonight, Joshua Bardwell.
That's me. Hello.
And my little Tony.
Or should I say cheerio?
Yeah.
That's the other one, Cheerio. I've never said Cheerio. Never
Cheerio,
said it.
chap.
Welsh people do on the phone. when they're talking.
Wensleydale.
And then my little Tony, Josh,
My little Tony.
Bonjour.
and everyone's favourite curried kitten.
And everyone's favorite curried kitten. So I'm back in
Hello.
my own accent now. Curried
I
kitten.
think this
I
is
win.
the longest intro I've ever seen. We're
I
5
know,
minutes
we
in.
started
Good thing we
early
no.
as
It's a good
well.
thing we started early.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you wanted to do the intro. I was just.
Maybe we should try making Josh say the right words. Like, can you say soldering and aluminium?
Soldering and aluminium. I can say those
You
things,
can
but I
say
don't know
it.
why. I don't know why I would. Now, the soldering thing, I think you have some room to argue, but the aluminium, I actually feel is a little bit less cut and dried because aluminum was actually the first thing that it was called.
No, it was
Aluminium
both.
came later.
He used both terms.
I'm just saying,
I
he
looked
used
into
both. Aluminium, there's a reason it was selected, but I mean, I feel like history is a little bit on my side here.
So why is solder okay though? I'm interested in
Because
I agree,
because-
but I want to know your opinion.
solder, look, here's what it comes down to. You can make all the arguments you want about, medieval French pronunciation, but the bottom line is that Americans pronounce words however the hell we want. And if we do that for more than
And
about
spell 'em
20 or
however
30
you
years,
want.
then Mr. Color.
Hang on.
I get you.
English, right? From England, right?
Yeah, but that's why we had the whole Revolutionary War.
No,
so we could
you
spell
had
and
the whole
pronounce words
Revolutionary War 'cause you didn't wanna
exactly
put
like we wanted.
E.
You
That's
just
what
didn't
it
want to
was.
pay tax to us,
And
you
then
bastard.
you have the audacity to call us lying, you Yankee doodles.
This is the argument of, oh, well, I speak American English and you guys speak British English, as opposed to, no, we just speak English.
English.
Right, I've
Well,
got,
I'm
I've
happy
got
to
an
call-
actual question for Josh. Let's stop
I'm happy to
arguing.
call it American. I'm happy to call it American. We don't even like you guys. I don't know why we would call it English. Why are we going to call it
You're
American?
our best
We're going to take
buddies.
the A. I just mean we as a country. I don't mean personally. You guys are awesome. We're going to take the A right off it. We're going to just call it American. The more vowels you remove from a word, the more manly it is. Now, for example,
Hang on, isn't a merkin one of the?
That's a pubic wig.
Isn't that a? Yeah.
Wig.
wig. What's
A,
wig?
a pubic wig is a merkin.
Yeah.
American. That is true. Actually, that is true. I'm aware of that. They were worn by prostitutes in times when.
Whoa.
No, this is true.
No,
It's
we're going to learn something today. Carry
It's a
on.
pubic American, Murkin, is a pubic wig. In times when hygiene was not what it is today, a prostitute might want to conceal the nature of her bits, and they would shave them, and that would help keep them clean.
Lies.
I
And
would
yes.
argue that.
And then
that
they would put the
hygiene
merkin
is
on.
worse today.
You'd put the merkin on, and it would hide any lesions.
Crabs.
Crabs, yeah, that is a thing. But
Called it.
I feel like Americans who pronounce the name of our country like that would not appreciate that comparison.
No, I don't either. I don't know why it was brought up. Can I ask you a question from the chat?
You may.
Ash from Droning On. Come on, let's get serious now. Ash from Droning On said, can you ask Joshua what the make and model of his camera that he's using right now? Because it's looking good.
I wanted to ask that because
We all look shit.
I
Josh looks good.
yes.
You probably look
exactly.
something like this. Hold on. Hang on.
Here we go, Ash.
You probably look something like this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, that's about right. Yeah. Hang on. Ooh.
Do you know what though? Curry Kitten has got a really nice camera setup as well. I wonder if there's been some copying going on there. Wayne, are you there or are you frozen? You look frozen.
I'm here.
Wayne, What camera do you use? Not now, but for your videos, because I'm like, I need that setup.
I use this Canon EOS M3.
That looks way out of my budget.
Because it has a flip-up screen so you can see yourself, and it has external microphone jack, so I can put my mics up here above my computer. I mount this up there and film myself.
Cool. And mine is a Lumix, Panasonic Lumix G85, which I also got because Drew recommended it to me, Ladrib. And it has a flip out screen. So for vloggy stuff, it's great. For shooting on the bench, it's great because I actually have an external monitor back on the bench. You can kind of see it right there-ish, but you can actually see it if you don't have an external monitor. The one thing about the G85 is that it has absolutely crap autofocus. It's crap. Yeah. It's almost useless. But for bench stuff and even for vloggy stuff, if you have it in face tracking mode, it does okay. But then if you like obscure your face or if you have sunglasses on, it's out the window. So you kind of have to shoot in fixed focus most of the time. And occasionally you do get like a shot that's out of focus. But it's an okay camera.
So are you using that now to live stream as well?
Yeah, I have a HDMI capture card that lets me basically treat it as if it was a webcam.
Man. See, this is why you have the subscribers.
This is a pro setup, isn't it?
Yeah,
What capture card are you using?
So the capture card is an Elgato Cam Link. And the cool thing about the Cam Link is that a lot of HDMI capture cards use like proprietary drivers. And as a result, and this is true even for other Elgato capture cards, like I have the Elgato Game Capture.
Yeah.
You can't have more than one of them plugged in at a time because the drivers conflict. But the Elgato Cam Link uses standard USB HID drivers and just shows up like a webcam. So basically you can have as many of them as your computer will support, which if you want it, so it lets you actually use 2 or 3 at the same time if you prefer. That's why I like that one. And no weirdo drivers. So it's about $120 right now, I think.
It's Black Friday. Is it this Friday?
No, I don't
Tomorrow?
think so.
Next week?
Is it? Jeez. Oh my gosh, you might be right. When's Thanksgiving? Is it the 29th or the 22nd?
Over in this country, we've got nothing to be thankful for. Everyone's just resigning from Brexit.
Yeah,
well, now you guys,
let's not even get into that tonight, please.
So you have your camera above your like monitor, do you?
Correct.
And then that plugs into a capture device, and then that's seen as like a webcam on your computer and gives you great quality, does it? Is that how it is that what I'm seeing?
The camera outputs HDMI. The reason it looks good, I think, is just that the camera and the lens are decent, and I've tweaked the contrast and stuff to kind of try and make it look decent. But I think it's the quality of the camera that you're really seeing.
Are you lighting yourself in some special way as well, Josh?
Yep. I have. So I have. If you look behind me, you can see I have basically the same lighting setup over my monitors. In fact, if you go look at any of my videos shot from the bench, you can see the lights over the monitors.
Sweet, you look good. Shout out to Underfluked, who's just dropped £10 in the super chat. Thank you, mate. Richard Warwick in the chat had a question. Let me try. I think I remember what he said. He said something like, "How's life going without the full-time job, and now YouTube is your full-time job? How's that panning out?"
I'm doing okay. Of course, what everybody wants to know is, am I about to be destitute? And the answer to that is thankfully no. Thanks to thanks to my patrons. Always thank the patrons. YouTube ad revenue goes up and down on any given month, but the Patreon is always there. I know you guys appreciate that.
Yeah. You're a Patreon to us, so thank you.
Everyone has been very generous to me, and I have a policy of I will patronize almost anybody I find. If I find out you exist and you have a Patreon, I'll give you $5 a month. Now I'm going to be overwhelmed with people.
I've got a Patreon.
Me and Andy have got a Patreon.
So that if I'm not patronizing you, either I don't like you personally, or I just haven't. there's so much out there that hasn't come across my radar. So if you decide which it is,
that's fair. I've met myself. I don't like you.
The one exception is I don't know if you guys heard about Zoe FPV and her situation recently. Zoe FPV is a pilot. Most people probably know her. She had a situation come up where her rent changed suddenly, or basically she lost her apartment. She couldn't afford it. And there was everybody was looking for ways to support her. And I actually subbed to her. I was just like, let's find a way to give her money. And I subbed to her at her. I just like, what's her highest Patreon level? It's $100 a month. Okay. So if anybody's looking and they're like, I got $5. Why did Zoe get $100? It's because she was like literally homeless, and it was just the easiest way for me to give her money. So
yeah,
don't take it.
You know, I done the same, but not as much. Yeah. But yeah, I hope she gets. Well, she's looking happy in. She's looking happy in. What does she call it? Boat face or something?
Mr. Motorface or something.
Yeah, that's it. She's looking like she's settled and actually going to enjoy herself. So and she's getting some jobs lined up as well. Some real good jobs. She's looking good. So I'm excited for her. It's exciting what she's doing, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who need help and support, obviously. And I know you guys keep your show going, and you know that, and it's not always possible to help everybody. But in a case like that, where somebody just comes right across your radar, we had just been at Rampage. We've been hanging out together, and then she comes back from Rampage, and she's about to be homeless. And I'm just like, what can
how can I rectify this?
I would, you want to help everybody. But
yep.
Anyway, so that's I'm doing okay. I work a lot more than I did when I had a day job. There's no more weekends anymore. I mean, I don't want to give people the wrong impression that I'm like overworked and burning out. I really do enjoy it. And I do make sure I get time every day with my family. It's really nice to be able to, when you work from home, to be able to spend time, with your son in the morning and then not have an hour commute like some people do. But I'm working way more than ever, trying to keep, the quality of the videos up and not lose track of what made me successful in the first place. But so far it's going pretty good.
What did you do before, Josh? Because I'm seeing videos of you backing pigs into trailers and things.
I've always had a history of crazy hobbies, of which FPV is just the most recent. And now that it's my whole job, probably it'll stick around. But like before I was into FPV, I was a hobby welder. I learned to weld just because I thought that would be neat. We raised livestock for a while. Had pigs, sheep, chickens, ducks. We had those for a while.
I tried to buy Tony a chicken once. It didn't go down too well.
Chickens are great. Everyone who can should have chickens.
Tony root for chicken.
They're such cool animals. They're really just fun to have around. They're so neat they're just cool to watch. They just kind of do neat things all day. And they're very low maintenance, and they make eggs. But even if, they're just
if he's vegan, he won't eat it.
That's true.
I thought it would be funny just to leave him to have a. But it was a cockerel anyway, so he didn't really lay eggs. He was
No, they don't.
I called him Little Tony.
You would be surprised as to how many people don't understand the very basics of chicken reproduction. They assume that if you don't have a rooster, then the chickens won't lay eggs.
No,
and
they just won't get fertilized because
they won't be fertilized. That's right.
Don't the cockerel stick his dick in the egg rather than the female chicken?
No, not well, there's a part of the hen's anatomy called the cloaca, which is a tract of sorts, which the eggs come out, and he makes a deposit, and the female, the hen actually sort of stores his deposit, and as the eggs pass through, they're just sort of a bit is inseminated into the egg, and that's how that works.
Pupate.
But if you don't have a rooster, she still lays eggs. They're just not fertilized, which you really prefer. If you've ever cracked open a half fertilized egg, it's you learn a lot about a chicken's anatomy.
Definitely not vegan.
No, none of this is vegan.
changing the subject.
It's more of a chewy omelette than you want.
I was going to say,
moving swiftly on. Dave's story.
Yeah.
Said, how did you like flying the X class?
It's amazing. I've got to tell you, everybody sees X class, and a lot of people think, "What's the effing point?" It doesn't fly as well as a smaller quad. It's more expensive to crash. It's more dangerous. Why would you go back 4 years to these big old quads that fly like crap? And the answer is something about it. It's something about it. Why is it more exciting to race in a real car than to race like an RC car or a video game? The stakes are higher, and the power is there. It's like if you just rev like a giant V8 engine and it goes, and you're like, yes, these big motors, these big props, these big quads. And also the one that I flew was a 6S, which is the really good ones are like 12S, 10S. They're much high, and they're much higher performance than even the one I flew. So Catalyst Machine Works is actually working on a prototype X-Class frame, which if you know Catalyst Machine Works, you know it's going to be epic. And Neil Whiteley is going to do it. He's working on a build, which if you know Neil Whiteley, you know he's not going to screw around. It's gonna be amazing. And I'm looking forward to. I may work with him to like get a prototype or maybe build one of my own. It was really fun. I want to see what happens when you get one that's like a 12S or an 18S or whatever that doesn't fly like crap. Because I think I just have to think twice about where I fly it, because you just don't want to take one of these things just to a park where you could take somebody's head off. Like a mini quad.
That's scary. Wow, thank you. RDFPV just dropped $24.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm flying 8S on my X-Class, and it makes such a gnarly noise. I love it. I actually really enjoy flying it.
Apart from a few seconds when you were flying 7S.
Yes, at the end of the pack. Yeah, I know. I've yet to test that pack yet. I'm still worried, but I'm taking it down to Curry Kittens on Saturday. So we'll see what happens.
I think the thing with these bigger quads as well. I mean, I talk about this all the time, but for it to be successful and continue, it needs to be more of a spectacle for spectators. And the 5-inch, you know, to do a 5-inch race safely, you have to be, the spectators are, you know, they're just seeing little flying dots, you know, and the X Class, you actually get to see something. It's like what you were saying before, when you see like a remote control car racing against a Formula One car. It's more of a spectacle because there's more to see. And funnily enough, actually, I recently the biggest model I've done recently was a 7-inch, and I could not believe the response that I got, like the interest that I got from a bigger quad. And I think there's something about that as well. Is it, you know, it's a very, even though we're racing in groups of people, the only people having fun are the people looking through the goggles rather than the people standing at the side watching, you know.
Yeah, I've often felt that FPV is the ideal spectator sport, because unlike a football game where you have to just sit in the stands and watch, you can literally just put your goggles on and you can see the exact pilot's feed. But the problem is that only serves other pilots who have goggles. It doesn't serve spectators very well, especially spectators who are not familiar with the sport. And so you show them an FPV feed and they can't really keep track of what's going on. So, but here's the thing that I learned, that I took away from flying the X Class, which is the argument, it's good for spectators, therefore it's good for the hobby, is an intellectual argument. But it was actually fun to fly and exciting and interesting. And so as a pilot, I think if you're looking at X Class going, what's the freaking point? Maybe wait till you've flown one, because when you fly it, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I kind of like it. So
it is cool. I like it.
I've got a question for you, because didn't you go to is it Shenzhen, the China races, and they were using HD footage.
So I wasn't
or
there.
something.
I wasn't there.
Oh,
I didn't go to that race, the FAI race in Shenzhen recently. I did not go there. I did go to Shenzhen a while back, but not for that race.
All I kept hearing was, "Oh, DJI have nailed it with this." So I don't know whether they were doing.
I think they were recording on. They had like a pod on top, so I don't think it. I think the feed was FPV. What the
I've seen
pilots were
DVR
using, and and then they had another recording bit on top of it. That's what I saw.
I saw DVR. They were definitely doing analog FPV. Maybe they were also. I don't know what the pilots were flying, but I've definitely seen regular DVR.
Didn't I see a Joshua Bardwell video though that said HD FPV is impossible and will never happen?
It's never going to happen. That's right. Because that's exactly what I would say. Now, I want to be fair. The reason people think I said that was because I used a thumbnail, the thumbnail from the movie Mean Girls, where one of the characters says, it's a meme basically, where one of the characters is trying to get a buzzword started and the other girl says, stop, that's not going to happen. But if you actually dig into that meme, it's deep. See, there's little nuggets here for people who are tied into meme culture, because she's just being a hater. When she says, stop trying to make fetch happen, fetch is not going to happen. She's just being a hater. It doesn't mean that fetch isn't going to happen. That's the depth there. So when you say HD is not going to happen, and here's all the reasons it's not going to happen, but actually there's some truth to those reasons, but I'm also kind of just being a hater. And that thumbnail was my acknowledgement that these are obstacles that we have to overcome to make HD happen. And there's substantial obstacles, but it's really, why hasn't it happened yet? Which is the question people always ask. They always say, we could put a man on the moon. Why don't we have digital HD wonderful video? And the answer is, here's why we don't have it yet. And once we overcome these things, which we inevitably will, then we'll have it.
I have never wanted my show to be on a Friday in the hope that Joshua Bardwell would be wearing pink.
Do I wear pink on Fridays?
We wear pink on Fridays.
Oh.
It's a Mean Girls reference.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mean Girls. Got it.
Shout out to Win Davis. Just dropped £10 in the super chat. Thank you very much. He says, thank you, lads, for all you do and putting on a fantastic show. You crack me up. Thanks, Win.
So I had a question for Josh, and it leads on to what we were talking about in the past few weeks. As Josh is a guru of all things Betaflight, our question is, has Betaflight become too complicated for people coming into the hobby? Now, there's two aspects to this. You could say no, because if you run it default, it flies pretty good anyway. But if they want to go in and start fiddling, is it too much at the moment?
Well, I think Betaflight could be easier to use. I wish it was easier to use. And I don't mean things like air mode and PID tuning, which, as you point out, the defaults work very, very well, and you just don't have to even worry about them. But I wish it were easier to use in terms of the setup, things like the receiver setup. Like, it's so hard for so many people to even get their receiver working because they don't know what UART to use. They don't know serial RX, SBus, etc. And if you look at something like Flight One with their setup wizards, or even the Pegasus GUI, which is done by is it the Helio or the Butterflight devs? I'm not sure. But these things have these wizards to help you do things like set up your channel mapping, your receiver, your motor order, and your motor direction. And these are things that I wish were in Betaflight. And whenever the Betaflight devs are pressed on these issues, their answer boils down to, well, it's an open source project. Feel free to contribute those things. It's not like we're stopping them from being done. And it's worth remembering that all the Betaflight devs are working for free in their spare time just because they love the project. Nobody's making any money out of this, unlike Flight One, which they're selling a product and they're making money on the hardware. So when the Betaflight devs say, well, we just don't feel like doing that, then so be it. And it would be great if we saw someone contributing this, but the GUI is not sexy. And the people who have the skills to write the wizards and stuff, they don't perceive setting up Betaflight as a problem. It's easy for them. So they're just not that interested in it. and that's why it hasn't been done. But is it too? It could be. I wish it were easier. Is the answer to your question?
I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago because one thing I've noticed, especially like this year, and going out and flying with people, going to events, is that people are frustrated with how much knowledge you have to get into this. You know, you have to, if you want to be up with the latest beta flight, you have to go and read the latest every single day. And you go into beta flight, there's an expert mode, and all it does is when you click it, it turns on your fail-safe options. And what I think beta flight needs is like a proper simple mode that gets rid of all the feed forward, gives you simple PIDs. But I think, was it Wayne, me and you talked about this. Beta flight really is really it's called beta. It's originally to show what can be done.
Yeah,
and
it's cutting edge, because we talked about perhaps you need to do a fork called Simple Flight, which is like it takes something to beta flight, and you just like plug it in, and it just says, "Hang on, configuring."
Well, I don't know, like what level, where do you draw the line? Because you could use someone like Tony as a baseline, and all the GUI is you plug it in, and there's a big button that just says "work" in red, and he clicks the work button, and then it turns green, and then he expects it to fly.
If you look at the KISS project, you see some example of what happens when you try to do that, because KISS was founded on keep it simple, the idea that it's going to be simple. But if you look at the feature creep in KISS since it first came out, you'll notice that it's still not as bad as Betaflight, but a lot of the things that were left out in the beginning kind of got crept back in because people needed them. So I think it's difficult to hold that line. Another thing that makes it difficult is that Betaflight, there are literally like hundreds of, maybe not hundreds, I forget the number, but it's a huge number of boards. And so when you talk about why can't we have wizards that auto configure stuff, well, that's easier to do when you've got something like Flight 1, where essentially you're the only manufacturer of the hardware, and all the hardware is the same underneath the hood, or maybe there's 2 or 3 variants. One of the reasons it's difficult to do that kind of thing, say the Betaflight devs anyway, is that the target support they have is there's just too many different boards. So
was you checking out Flight 1, you becoming frustrated with Betaflight, or just because I remember watching one of your videos and you said the reason why I stick to Betaflight is because it's what I know, and it'd take up too much time to learn KISS, to learn Flight 1. So what was the thinking behind trying Flight 1 and moving away from Betaflight? Because I'll tell you now, I got so frustrated with Betaflight that I went back to KISS recently, and even though the biggest problem with KISS is all the serial number business, that's the limitation of KISS, but actually there's 3 screens in KISS that can get you going pretty easy. So yeah, what was it for you that sort of thought, oh, I'll try this Flight 1, and are you considering KISS and other options now?
I would always like to try these other firmwares, just so I have a sense of what's out there, and don't get sort of pigeonholed. Personally, I mean, I know that as a content creator, I'm very much pigeonholed into Betaflight and so forth. That's just, that's just what I learned coming up. It's still the most popular by far. I actually did some research recently into Google Analytics, just looking at search results and what people were searching for. And Betaflight is by far more popular than the others, at least if search results are any indicator. So there's not a strong motivation to move out of it. If Betaflight was for some reason becoming much less popular, then I would want to go where the audience is, obviously. Or if there was some new firmware that had much better technology in some way, I might be more motivated. It's challenging to make content. I don't want to make content about stuff that I'm not authoritative on. I don't want to just half-ass it. And in order to become knowledgeable and authoritative, it takes a big investment. I need to be the smartest guy in the room or close to it if I'm talking about. And with Betaflight, I kind of am, but with Flight 1, I'm not. And I guarantee you, if I make a Flight 1 video and I get a detail wrong, I'm going to get just jumped on to the nth degree. Nobody's going to be very forgiving if I make mistakes about Flight 1 or KISS. Maybe the KISS guys will be a little more forgiving, but anyway. So that's why when I sit down to make when I sit down to make a video, KISS guys are, the KISS people have never been hostile. I don't know what it is about Flight 1, and it's not everybody, but something about the Flight 1 fans and to similar degree the Butterflight fans, there's some of them are pretty hostile.
I've had death threats. I think my favorite one on Racelight was, "You don't know what you're on about. I'm going to rip your dick off," or something like that.
But probably wouldn't tell you.
Wish.
Was that Tony, though? Let's be fair.
But the real reason I flew a race, and this is the God's honest truth, the real reason I flew a Flight 1 rig, because I'm always like, oh, I'd like to fly it, but I don't have time to build it. I always have something else that's higher priority that I need to be building. And somebody they lent me a quad. A very nice guy lent me the Schizo Nova frame, Freibot Motors, Flight 1 build. And he said, look, I think it's pretty awesome. I just want you to try it out. And so since it was just sitting there, all I had to do was basically bind the transmitter. I was like, all right, well, I'll give it a go.
Would that be the same if like someone sent you a KISS quad?
Sure. I mean, I'll give it a fly. I'd love to try it out.
Have you ever flown KISS?
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago. I mean, you can find it on my channel when it was. It was a long time ago, so I'm sure a lot has changed. But I would say
I've done it recently, and I would really recommend checking it out, because there's literally no if you know Beta Flight as well as you do, KISS is just it's so easy. I'd be interested to know what you think about it, because it flies different. It just flies.
Something about the way the rates are, or people used to conjecture that it was because of the current limiting in the ESCs. It changed the ESC's response curve. It sort of smoothed off some of the voltage spikes, which meant that the motors responded smoother. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, I've always thought that KISS has a very unique feel. And I will say that Sim 1 has a very unique feel, which some have compared to KISS. Kind of loose but tight, I think is the word somebody used. And I was like, yeah, no, I get that. That's kind of how it feels. It is sort of locked and precise. I'm talking about sim mode here. I haven't flown KISS recently. It is locked and precise without feeling stiff. It is responsive to the stick movements without feeling sloppy. And that's a very interesting combination. And I very much liked it when I did fly it. That being said, it wasn't like people expect the new stuff to be perfect. No prop watch. Everything is perfect forever. And I mean, it has its limitations like anything. You still have to tweak the tune a little bit. On the quad I had, it was very good. It wasn't like revolutionary perfect, but I definitely see the appeal.
Yeah. KISS needs an on-screen display like Beta Flight, like SPI built in. And it needs to be cheaper. And if they did that, I think it'd be the leader.
You can still multi-wheel OSD, but
such a pain in the ass. Though
it's a pain. It's such a pain. Once it's set up, it's amazing, and I prefer it to Beta Flight, actually, the OSD. But you have to disconnect the connectors and you have to flash the config file, set it up, and then flash another, and then it's an absolute mess. If they could figure that out, I think they could.
Do you still have to disconnect the ports on the KISS V2? Because
you do
OSD pass through, haven't you?
No, you have to disconnect.
Not if you use the Wolf, it's all right, but the the other one was
again, it's a rebranded Minim OSD, which was 2 years ago for Beta Flight. So that's KISS's biggest problem, but it flies superb. And
I think if you look at any of them, people are like, this is the best. And if you look at any of them, it's easy to forget that there's more at stake than just the pure flight handling, unless you're like just a racer and that's all you care about is your lap times. There's things like the price, which KISS loses on price. There's things like the variety of boards. Like, for example, if you don't like the Revolt, board, if you don't like their hardware design for any reason, then you're kind of out of luck with Flight One. Although I have heard they started supporting the Pyro F4 OSD, so maybe they're branching out into other hardware. That should be interesting because their development resources, Flight One, they have relatively limited development resources. I feel. I mean, I don't know how many guys they have on their payroll, but it seems like the way that they struggle to fix bugs and release new features. It seems like it takes them a while to do that, and it feels like they don't have a ton of developers on board. That's just my opinion. So if everybody has a different pro and a different con. Betaflight has a massive variety of hardware available at any price point you prefer, and they have relatively large developer base and user base, so you get a lot of testing. But they're not always the most cutting edge in terms of things like, Flight One had like launch mode first. So everybody's out there and they're all doing their thing and it's all good. Andy, I have a question that I want to propose to you.
Oh, go for it.
It has to do with this little guy. You reviewed this guy, right?
I got in a lot of trouble because I announced.
Why did you get? Yeah, why did you get in trouble?
I like to do news videos to keep people updated of things that are coming, and I got sent like information about the Tiny Hawk, as I'm sure you did, like way before, and I'm friends with Brendan, and I couldn't get in contact with Brendan. He was on holiday, so I just thought, oh, screw it, I'll announce the Tiny Hawk, and they weren't happy. But sorry, but what?
Well, that's actually, I didn't mean to pick on you about it. I didn't actually know you did that. But I wanted to ask you because if I remember right, in your review of the Tiny Hawk, you said basically there's no reason to buy a Tiny Whoop anymore. Am I right about that?
No, I didn't say that. No,
you didn't say that.
No, I don't. I don't.
Joshua sends a timestamp.
I don't see it. I don't see it as a Tiny Whoop. I'm really confused about the whole Tiny Whoop phenomenon at the moment.
Didn't you say it was like this is more of a sports hall racing thing than an indoor in your house type quad? So it's not.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily
a
replacement.
I anticipated that coming into winter we would get a load of Tiny Whoops for flying indoors, but what we have got is a bunch of Tiny Whoops for flying outdoors, 2S models, not the Tiny Hawk, because actually the Tiny Hawk flies awesome indoors. I didn't think it would actually, but it flies great in the house, even in a small house. But
I agree.
But we've got these models, the Mobula 7, the
Beta 75.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for myself where it's barely above 1 degree in temperature here, and I don't want, for me a Tiny Whoop is for where it's nice and warm in the house, and when we've got 35-degree camera angles and 2S, I'm like, what is that for this time of year?
I feel the same way. I feel the same way about them, and I'm gonna have to go back and look because I've obviously mixed your video up with somebody else's. I'm sure the people in the comments are like, "No, that wasn't Andy. That was so and so." I apologize for that.
Do not worry, because it is. I'm the same as you. You do not have time to watch other people's videos when you're doing this.
But I agree with you. Those I see that, and I've got a couple on the way. I've got the Mobula on the way, and I've got a Beta 75 on the way, and I'm going to try them out and give them a fair shake. But I feel the same way. That what really I did not like micro quads for the longest time, and what really made Tiny Whoops sort of open up for me was setting up some race gates in my living room, having like 5 of my mates come over.
Mates.
And we just sat around and we ate pizza and flew and raced Tiny Whoops, and it was a blast. And I was like, I get it. Because whenever I had a micro quad before, I'd take it outside and I'd try to fly it, and it would be underpowered and handle like crap, and it was no fun. And then if you get a micro quad like a 2S Tiny Whoop, I feel like it's got to be too fast for the inside. And once you get it outside, I feel like you're going to just wish you were flying like even a 2-inch quad is going to 2.5-inch is going to be so much better outside than one of these little 2S whoops.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think there's perhaps a case for versatility there. Something you can fly indoors and outdoors. I mean, it's kind of like jack of all trades and master of none. So it's a bit of a trade-off that you can do both. It just doesn't do either of them particularly well, but you don't have to buy 2 quads. So you could argue that's the case. I've got yet another one. This is the tiny GT7 from
mine of that turned up today too, but we're in the I find that we always get them the same time because we're in the same country, but yeah, King Kong have stepped in with that as well. My conclusion of the 2S Whoop was this. Really, the only like Josh says, you can get a 2-inch, a 3-inch, and it'll run rings around these tiny whoops outdoors. However, they are the fact that they've got the ducts. And that they're lightweight, and actually they don't have much power. They have too much power for indoors and not enough power for outdoors. But if you're a beginner and you're worried about hitting property, hitting people, then you're not gonna do any damage. So to me, but it's a really niche thing. But that was my conclusion. That they're safe, but there are better options. I think
I could see it. I'm trying to think about what you're saying here and find the right niche for them. Like I've seen footage of flying, doing stuff like Zorro does, where he's kind of doing gorilla whooping. What does he call? I forget what he calls. He has a name for it. But he'll fly around public places and annoy people. And in a case like that, you could be in a relatively open place where you appreciate the additional speed and power of the 2S, but you're not trying to do acro stuff. You're just trying to sort of rip around a little bit. I could see that, maybe.
Yeah, and also the last thing as well, which again is a really niche thing because not many people have this, but I recently joined a club that rent out a sports hall. So like, and if you set up tiny whoop gates, that they are superb for that. But again, most people just want to fly in their house. So again, it's a really niche thing, and I've been really surprised at it. But that's what's going on at the moment. 2S whoops, and but I like the Tiny Hawk. I think indoors it's fine, and outdoors it doesn't have the power. But you can fly it, and it flies. I don't know whether it's the Maytech components, but it is the smoothest of the lot I found.
I made the analogy to a Volkswagen Bug, because as good as the Tiny Hawk is, and I do think it's good, there's just something about the Tiny Whoop form factor that's just so cute. And you just look at it and you go, oh, that's my Tiny Whoop. And in the same way that people love the Volkswagen Bug, even though in any given respect, it's not the best car. I feel like there's a sentimental attachment to Tiny Whoops that's going to make it hard to overcome. Although this is a pretty good quad, and
I like how consistent they are.
Yeah,
ever since Brandon took over. With the whole thing, everything's been a hit, hasn't it? The Hawk 5, the Baby Hawk.
Oh god, Emax is kicking ass. Yeah,
because they released some actually not so great models. I think I'm trying to think.
The Nighthawk.
I was going to say the Nighthawk, the very first Baby Hawk, and then I think when they started giving it to pilots in the US, that's really when it took off.
The Hawk, I was so prepared to dislike the Hawk, because ready-to-fly quads are usually at best acceptable. They're like, oh yeah, not bad. But for the price, the Hawk is so good. The Hawk is such an amazingly good flying quad. It's so well designed. There's almost nothing to complain about it. I found a few things in my review, but overall, it was just an absolute winner. And then you've got the Baby Hawk, the Pro with the 2.5 inch. arms and the higher KV motors, and now the Tiny Hawk. Yeah, Emax is really doing something right with their ready to fly.
The original Nighthawk was absolute garbage. I hated the ESCs on it. I hated the bottom, like basically the bottom plate. Do you remember the first one?
The yellow one, are you talking about?
No, the black carbon fiber one.
Yeah, but they didn't get it was
back in the day.
It was from China before they got proper pilots involved and tuned them and said, no, actually this is what we want. And the Hawk 5s now, I think Brandon said like, oh, it's been out a year and it's still that yellow
so
one.
bad. So bad. I actually think they sent me one of these to test. I can't remember what happened with it. I don't think I ever reviewed it.
Yeah, I reviewed it. It was okay. The thing, what you have to remember is it was a long time ago, and things have moved on quite a bit from then as well, as in technology wise, ESCs. So I'm not gonna hate on them too much, but
no, they're kicking ass, and they're relatively I mean, we're just turning into an Emax love fest now. I'm not sure how interesting this is for the viewers, but like I love that in the Baby Hawk they started with the Magnum stack, and it didn't have smart audio, so you had to push the button, which annoyed me. And now in the Baby Hawk R Pro, VTX has smart audio. Good for you.
Yeah, maybe we need a Hawk 5 Pro. And that's all I'm gonna say on that.
I'm sure that's like it's gotta be coming, right?
Be careful because you'll get in trouble.
I don't know anything, so I can't reveal anything. But I mean, if you just look at what Emax has done, it stands to reason that a version of the Hawk with an upgraded stack is coming. It stands to reason.
I don't know anything either.
Okay. It's the beauty. It's like people say to me, "Can you keep a secret?" And I say no. So please don't tell me any information you need me to. Can I tell you something about Andy? No. I mean, you can, but I'm probably going to repeat it.
I can tell you. I could tell you stuff about it, but I'm not going to.
I want to change the subject a little bit, and I know I'm sorry. I always do this. I take over all of the questions. But
that's not true. You haven't had one.
What lawnmower have you got?
He's got it.
What do you got, Andy?
Mike, I have this worry that at the moment that we have hit a lull in this hobby, in that when anytime I get something for review, it's like just a repackaged version of something else, and I've said this to a lot of guests as well. I'd like to know what your opinion is on it. Where do you think? I mean, do you agree? Do you think that we've hit like a plateau in technology? And if so, what is it going to take for? Around about end of 2016, 2017, there was a huge explosion of people interested in this stuff. And now I kind of feel like that it's leveled out because we're not seeing HD, FPV. We're getting 4-minute flight times. And do you think that we've hit a lull? And do you think that there's a way out of it?
Yeah, so it's very interesting that you asked that question right now. I just had a conversation with Chad Capper about this recently, and he has a video, which I'm going to refer you and the other viewers to here on my screen. It's on his channel. It's called The Hype Cycle. And the Hype Cycle refers to, it's a concept by, I think, Gartner, which, what am I doing? Why is it? My screen says I'm presenting to everyone.
Oh, Andy, did you do that?
No, don't do that. I got that. I appreciate that. I got it. Look at this. Boom.
Yeah, but it will.
I'm not going to show.
It won't.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to show the video, but I'll reference it. Maybe somebody will drop a link in the chat. The essence of the hype cycle is that any new technology starts with this big surge of interest where everybody is so excited about it, and you get a lot of speculators. A lot of people decide that they want to get into it. And what eventually happens is that there's then a contraction in which a lot of the people who like weren't able to make it or didn't understand it or weren't serious about it fall out. And that contraction, if you don't understand the nature of the cycle, can look like, oh, the industry's dying, but it's actually an essential sort of balance to the overhype that inevitably comes with any new technology. And then after that sort of contraction, you get sort of steadiness after that. And Chad's position is that we're in that contraction phase now. And you go, oh, all these companies, they're going out of business. That's because there were too many to begin with. And it was more than maybe could be supported. And now there's this contraction. There's going to be some sort of thinning of the herd. And that then we'll find out. The point is that we don't know what FPV and RC is going to be like. We don't know what the technology is going to look like, and we don't know who the users and customers are going to be. We only know who got it started, but it's going to be different in 2 years, but it doesn't mean it's going away. I think you're right that there's contraction. As far as the technology goes, I think it's normal that we would see this refinement in technology. So we started, what do we start with for cameras? There were security cameras, there were backup cameras, and there was a lot of room to take that technology and very cheaply and easily refine it into something better. If you look at flight controllers, you know, what we've done with the hardware, we haven't created anything revolutionary with the hardware. We're using off-the-shelf chips that are used in cell phones and other stuff, and we've just figured out more efficient and more effective ways to put that stuff into a package. But the FPV market as a whole is not enough to justify creating new technology from whole cloth. And that's why in my video about why digital high def FPV will never, ever, 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 ever happen, the gist of it is that as long as the market is small, we don't warrant anybody creating solutions just for us. Some people have responded to that video and said, what about 5G? When 5G cellular comes out, it's going to have sub-millisecond latency and 5 gigabits per second, and we'll just do FPV over 5G. To which I say, great, but that will not be a solution that was invented for FPV. Once again, we will be luckily tagging along in a solution that was invented for someone else. That's fortunate, but that doesn't sort of speak to the essence of our market. So, yeah, we're contracting. The fact that our technology has not taken any leaps and bounds simply means that we've sort of squeezed most of the essential and easy refinements out of it. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're not seeing new sort of groundbreaking leaps is because we're just not big enough a market to demand that, to cause that to happen, mostly. But the way we become that market is that we get through this contraction, we sort of figure out who we are, and then we sort of begin the slow, steady growth. It's like whenever you start a diet, the first thing you do is you lose 8 pounds in the first week and you go, this is great, but then it slows down. And then you figure out, well, am I going to lose the weight or am I going to gain it all back? And that's kind of where we're at. We had that big spurt and now we're having the contraction, and then that's a necessary step.
This is why I think things need to get easier in order for that excitement to come back. I think, like, whether it's Betaflight or whatever, the setup needs to be easier. But one thing that concerns me now is all of this long range stuff, the R9, the Crossfire. We're talking able to fly miles, but we're doing it with mini quads that have no redundancy. And I think there's still room there. I think, you know, I talked to NJ Tech, is a chap that comes on here. Oh, you know NJ Tech.
Sure.
You've seen his videos. He's experimenting at the moment with sticking GPS, using the new GPS options in Betaflight. And I think that is something that, just as a, you know, I'm not saying we need to be flying a GPS, but if all goes wrong, flick a switch and you can and your quad will fly back to you. And I'm hoping that's something that becomes a thing with you know, the long range sort of thing. And I think that would spike a bit of more interest. Is you know, people, you can pile $1,000 into a quad. I've got a friend who did that. He flew it in angle mode, and because there wasn't enough angle on it, the wind blew it away. He didn't know acro mode. It flew away and never to be seen again. I'd love to see some GPS options, small GPS units, you know, for redundancy. And I think that's my personal opinion, and I think that would you know, make people feel a bit more safe in their investment, because the amount of people that I just recently, I was flying with a guy, he lost his copter in a field and he said, that's it, I'm done. And we've not heard of him again for a couple of months.
Where was his redundant power beeper? Come on, how many videos do you have to make about this?
He obviously hasn't watched Curry, Kieran.
They're no good, those beepers.
They beep if the battery comes out. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but if it's flown 2 miles away and you don't know where it is,
well,
it doesn't matter how loud
I don't think
beeps, does it?
Crossfire was really for that, for the 5-inch, was it? It was like, it's for penetration.
Yeah, but people are using it for that.
Penetration.
People are using it for that. Jack himself is trying to fly out to some windmills that are miles away.
Stop talking.
He'll know about your little, I'm going to fly out to there and back.
It's all right. They're in visual line of sight.
Anyway, this is
you can see them with binoculars.
Is the last question I'm going to ask now. But Josh, do you agree? Do you think GPS needs to be in the mini quad world as a redundancy?
Well, I mean, that just depends on how far you're flying. You know, it depends on what you're doing. I'm glad Betaflight has GPS support as a backup for people. In my opinion, if you're doing any kind of longish range, then that's just essential. Otherwise, you just dump the quad in somebody's yard and that's it. So, I mean, I'm glad it's there, but do racers need it? No.
No.
Do freestyle pilots flying around a bando need it? Probably not. You know, for freestyle, I could see the advantage of having loiter, you know, or even return to home, just being nice. But, you know, it's nice that it's there. I don't think it's essential.
How can anyone fly in your backyard?
On Liftoff Simulator, you can fly in my backyard.
Alternatively, can we just turn up and start flying?
It's possible. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I wouldn't rule it out. My address is not a secret.
So you can fly in your backyard now. That is pretty cool.
Liftoff on Steam, yeah. All that happened was I said, "Hey guys, do you want to model my yard?" And they said yes, and then, you know, they dropped everything, and like 8 weeks later, it had been done. So it's wonderful. I love it.
I tried the same thing, but apparently just the dog shit bin isn't that interesting to fly around.
I was really lucky.
Drop stuff for very long. I think you send them an email.
Just how convenient is it to be able to not even have to walk out your door and be able to fly there?
And yet I probably fly less than 2 days a week because I'm so busy with making videos and answering questions. I could fly. It's like I literally could just step right out the door and fly, and so often I don't. So it's kind of pathetic, honestly.
I haven't flown for 2 weeks. This Saturday coming, it'll be 2 weeks.
That's because the weather's been crap, and we have to travel to find a place where we can go.
You chose to live in a place with crap weather.
I never chose any of this.
I chose to live somewhere where we mispronounce solder, and you chose to live somewhere with bad weather. So
we never talked about that. Why do you agree with solder? I'll tell you why I think solder is wrong. Because if you remove the al, it's not solder, it's soda.
You're trying to make it logical. Pronunciation of English and American words has never made any damn sense. It's completely inconsistent. I mean, we have this mishmash of roots from French and German and Latin and all the everywhere. There's no reason to assume that it should ever make sense. That's just how we say it. It's how we say it. If you show up at an electronics shop and you say solder, they'll look at you like you're a weirdo. And 2 weeks, you won't say it that way anymore. And that's how we, propagate our culture.
I've started saying solder in my videos, and you would not believe how angry people get.
You should really be. Here's the argument I'll make as a closer on that. You should be glad we say it differently because, as I said, things like pronunciation, things like the size of our pint glasses are how we propagate our culture, but also how we define our culture as distinct, right? And if we all said solder the same way, then we would have one step closer to English and American culture being the same. And I think we all agree neither of us wants that.
Yeah.
But you are all from where we are from.
Is it just me? But if you had to go into an American store, would you have to do air quotes and say, "I'd like some soda, please"?
They figure it out. They
just to make sure that you were doing it wrong.
I say sodding solder, and I think that's why people get angry at me.
Well, I hate to be the wet blanket, but I do believe we have to let Josh go off to his date night. I don't want to be responsible.
Is the babysitter even here yet? He's not allowed to go.
I assume so.
Oh dear.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you very much. It's been very good.
I've really hang on. I've really enjoyed this.
You say that so
well. Jack, do you want to sign us out?
No, I think Josh Jack should do it.
I don't know what
anymore.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Let's Drone Out.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Let's Drone Out. It's too long.
Tonight you've been joined by
Tonight you've been joined by
Andrew/Frank.
Andrew/Frank.
Goodbye.
Andy RC.
Andy RC.
Say goodbye, Andy RC.
Oh yeah. Goodbye. and you solder, not solder.
God, it is literally one step from.
I'll get right on that. This is fascism, really.
Joshua Bardwell.
Joshua Bardwell. Hello, goodbye. Nice to see you.
My little Tony.
My little Tony.
Bonjour. I'm having that as when I turn on my Tyrannus.
I was going to say, that's a Tyrannus audio thing.
Curry Kitten.
Curry Kitten.
Goodbye. This is surreal.
And I've been Bright Until I Fly, or Jack.
I've been Bright Until I Fly, or Jack.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you and good night.